Good evening. My name is Lori Van Egren, and I'm the Interim Associate Provost for University Outreach and Engagement at Michigan State University. My pronouns are she, her. I'd like to welcome you to the Michigan State University Science Festival's opening event. This year's festival is very special for a few reasons. While our keynote presentation this evening is, of course, on a virtual platform, this year we're holding both virtual and in-person events after being solely virtual for the past 2 years. We're thrilled to be hosting events in person again, and we look forward to seeing you on MSU's campus and other event sites throughout the month. Additionally, this is a notable year as it marks the 10th anniversary of the festival. For a decade, the Science Festival has brought people of all ages together to learn from and engage with leaders in science through featured talks, guest speakers, demonstrations, hands-on activities, tours, open houses, and more. The idea to establish the Science Festival at Michigan State University originally came from a community member, Renee Leone, who had attended and was inspired by the University of Cambridge Science Festival in the UK. Renee approached my predecessor, Dr. Hiram Fitzgerald, and he agreed for the Office of University Outreach and Engagement, with Renee Leone as the first coordinator of the festival, to host the first ever Science Festival on MSU's campus. Her vision of and her dedication to explorative learning brought students, faculty, and staff together with communities interested in engaging with and hearing from experts in STEAM programs, which include science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Over the years, the festival has grown in attendance from a few thousand attendees to more than 20,000, the biggest festival of its kind in Michigan. Throughout the years, the Science Festival has given faculty and researchers a platform to share their passions with public audiences to broaden the impacts of their work. This is part and parcel of MSU's mission, and faculty do this in many ways. For example, a faculty member in MSU's College of Communication Arts and Sciences is teaching youth in underserved communities about artificial intelligence to develop literacy programs, ultimately positioning students for better jobs in the future. Another example comes from the College of Natural Science, where faculty members are working to address a lack of diversity in science, technology, engineering, and math. This project gives Latinx students insights into education and career opportunities through a mentored research project exploring the intersection of science and community-engaged research within the geosciences. This year's theme is Envisioning the Future, and we're thrilled to have Dr. Karen Marrongelle join us to talk about scientific advancements both in the past and looking toward the future. Dr. Marrongelle is the Chief Operating Officer of the National Science Foundation, one of the country's premier agencies for funding science research and education. Her work has focused on understanding what causes disparities in educational opportunities and establishing a vision to address these issues. She's also led the funding of several educational research centers focusing on broadening participation through initiatives that address equity and inclusion in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. With her wealth of experience and knowledge, I know Dr. Marrongelle will set the stage for inspiring events throughout the month as attendees hear from leaders and innovators in our scientific communities, and they get to hear from our community members. Before I turn it over to our keynote speaker, I'd like to quickly mention that all events throughout the month can be found on MSU Science Festival's website, sciencefestival.msu.edu. Additionally, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank our sponsors listed on the screen, without whom we wouldn't be able to hold the MSU Science Festival. Their dedication to lifelong learners in our community is unmatched, and we wholeheartedly thank them for their continued support. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Dr. Karen Marrongelle.
Thank you so much, Lori. It is such a delight to be here with all of you this evening, and I am honored to be able to kick off your 10th anniversary Michigan State University Science Festival. I want to thank all of the organizers for the work that you have done putting this together and for extending this invitation to speak with you all about the wonderful world of science. My name is Dr. Karen Marrongelle. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Chief Operating Officer at the National Science Foundation. Like many of you here today, my passion and curiosity for science has given me some extraordinary experiences. Before I became NSF's Chief Operating Officer, I had the privilege of leading NSF's Education and Human Resources Directorate. And before that, I worked throughout a variety of positions in academic institutions, from assistant professor to dean. This year's Science Festival, hosted by you all here at Michigan State, offers such a great opportunity to speak to others about how science can empower us as individuals and as a nation to be curious and seek discoveries that shape the future for the better. My personal journey into STEM began with my love for mathematics. Mathematics offers us such an incredible way of looking at the world and thinking about problems big and small. It helps us generate solutions for everyday problems and helps us explore the furthest corners of our galaxy. I was lucky enough in my background to marry my love of mathematics with an appreciation of physics and an understanding of cognition and teaching and learning. I have felt honored throughout my career to be able to call myself a scientist and a mathematician and be able to pursue all the wonders that mathematics can bring to us and help others uncover those wonders as well. At the National Science Foundation, we have several different directorates that support science, research, and education across the scientific disciplines, from the biological sciences, the geosciences and engineering, to the social, behavioral, and economic sciences. NSF's unique role and capabilities has helped it to pioneer transformational changes to the way we live. From supporting the production of PPE during the start of the pandemic, to inspiring the technology that led to the cell phones that we all carry with us today, to investing in the development of coding applications like Scratch and Scratch Junior. NSF investments in research and education have empowered and enabled some extraordinary advancements in science and innovation. I'd like to spend some time today to share with you all the story of NSF. The advances in science and technology that occurred throughout World War II brought about many profound changes and realizations. One of these realizations was the need to prioritize science and discovery, and the cross-disciplinary role both have in national defense, economic stability, health, and the social well-being of our nation. As a result, in 1950, Congress established the National Science Foundation. Since NSF's founding, our mission has been to promote the progress of science, the advancement of national health, prosperity, and welfare, and in securing the national defense. NSF's commitment to this mission over the last 7 decades has brought us to a moment of tremendous potential. As we look toward the future, the world will continue to rely on the advancements of the scientific research community for answers to our time's most pressing issues. Things like climate change, clean energy technologies, and pandemic response being just a few examples. At NSF, we are also very happy to have such significant bipartisan support across the government for our work and for our mission. The Biden-Harris administration has continually made it clear that investing in NSF is an investment in a better future for everyone. When our NSF director, Dr. Sethuraman Panchanathan, or Dr. Panch, as we like to call him, took the helm, he underscored NSF's commitment to the inclusion of all people in STEM and emphasized that prioritizing inclusion is essential for the vitality of our nation's health, security, and prosperity. Ultimately, addressing barriers that hamper participation in STEM can help us continue to build a strong national science and engineering workforce. And of course, strengthening our STEM workforce requires that we address the missing millions, which is the term we use to define the gap between the demographics of the research community and the demographics of the whole nation. I'd like to show you all what the current STEM landscape looks like and who makes up this community and who does not. In the recently released 2021 Women, Minorities, and Persons with Disabilities in Science and Engineering report, we found that despite marginal gains in some areas, the representation of women, Black, Hispanic, American Indian, Alaska Native community members in our STEM workforce is still significantly smaller than their representation in the US population. Another report published by the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation has shown that only 12% of US innovators are women and only 8% are members of other minority groups. This lack of diversity in the scientific workforce illustrates that considerable talent, ideas, and new approaches are being left out of the US innovation ecosystem. This leaves us with a national STEM enterprise that is not representative of the incredible diversity we see in our country, a diversity that is essential to maintaining the US's innovative capacity and global leadership in science and engineering. And this is one of the key issues that we must address as we think about the future of science. As I mentioned previously, one of the strategic priorities of NSF is addressing the missing millions. When we talk about the missing millions, we are referring to the millions of individuals from communities across the country who lack sustainable pathways into STEM. At NSF, we truly believe that the best ideas come from involving a diversity of thought and experience. It is impossible to encourage innovation without a variety of viewpoints and perspectives. Addressing the missing millions, addressing the millions of individuals who come from different backgrounds but face obstacles in entering STEM education and careers is necessary for the success of NSF and the future of science. The most recent data from the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics, which NSF produces, projects that close to 4 million additional people, 4 million, are needed by the year 2030 for the science and engineering workforce to be representative of the US population. This aligns with so many initiatives across the country and across the federal government. It is our goal to have the STEM workforce reflect and embody the full diversity of our nation. We need, at a minimum, to double the number of women in science and engineering, more than double the number of Black scientists and engineers, triple the number of Hispanic and Latino scientists and engineers, and quadruple the number of American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Pacific Islander scientists, engineers, and researchers. Broadening participation is an agency-wide focus at the National Science Foundation. It is imbued in our big ideas throughout the agency, and there are initiatives throughout all corners of the NSF aimed at enhancing participation, especially for those who have historically not been given opportunity to succeed at STEM. We need to build STEM pathways that reach every part of the nation and provide that opportunity to everyone. From our Graduate Research Fellowship Program, which is designed to support graduate students who are pursuing STEM research-based degrees, to NSF programs focused on empowering our nation's historically Black colleges and universities and tribal colleges and universities. Our investments are helping to expand the participation of communities across the country as they pursue STEM education. NSF's Advanced Technological Education Program and Hispanic Serving Institutions Program supports the education of technicians for the high technology fields that drive our nation's economy by enhancing the quality of education and STEM opportunities. We all know that science and technology are closely intertwined, and this has always been the case for the research that NSF has supported throughout our 70-year history. We have always supported both foundational, curiosity-driven, discovery-oriented research, as well as use-inspired, solutions-oriented work. This is what we like to call the DNA of NSF, and it is a powerful approach that enables great leaps forward in both discovery and innovation. Let me give you some examples of how NSF investments have led to unbelievable outcomes over the years. At NSF, we are always striving to find new ways to increase and broaden participation in STEM. And as you heard me just say, this is such an important element of the work that we do throughout the foundation. One of the best ways to expand participation is by investing in early childhood education and opportunities. In the 1960s and 70s, NSF's Science and Education Development Program supported the development of Logo. Logo was the very first computer program language that was designed specifically for children to use. Logo taught children from an early age how to express themselves with the computer through a little computerized turtle, and helped teach the basics of computational ideas and processes. In the late 1980s, Logo partnered with the Lego company to produce programmable robotic kits. This partnership helped give rise to the present-day maker movement, which empowers individuals to be creators and helped to launch the current computer coding movement. In the early 2000s, with the rise of the internet and web-based platforms, NSF's Information Technology Research Program in our Computer Directorate helped to fund Mitch Resnick at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in his research and development of a new computer program called Scratch. Scratch helps teach children how to create their own interactive stories, games, and animations on the computer and share them with their online communities. Additional NSF funding between 2010 and 2013 helped to support the development of Scratch 2.0, which expanded the community of Scratch users exponentially. And today, there are millions of Scratch users around the world who continue to create and innovate and share their stories using internet-based technologies. Because of these investments, Scratch is the leading coding platform for children. It's available around the world for free, and the programming has been translated into more than 60 languages. And not just millions of users, but over 170 million users are currently on the Scratch platform today. But we didn't stop with those accomplishments of Scratch in the early 2000s. In 2011, NSF funding supported additional researchers who were asking the question, can kids learn how to code before they even learn how to read? And guess what? The answer was yes. And this led to the development of Scratch Junior. Scratch Junior was designed to answer this question, can kids code before they can learn to read, and to extend to young learners the opportunity to experience the principles of coding and the foundational knowledge structures such as sequencing, patterns, and predictions. Further NSF funding into the teaching of coding brought about the creation of SNAP, which is an extension of Scratch Junior, targeted at teaching high school and college computer science courses. And in 2015, NSF's Education and Computing Directorates launched the CS for All program. This program aimed to provide all US students with the opportunity to participate in computer science and computational thinking education at the pre-K through 12th grade levels. And thanks to NSF's support, this program enabled and continues to enable the professional development for thousands of teachers in computer science education, and led the College Board to adopt the widely used AP exam Computer Science Principles. Now, all of this brings us to today. The field of computer science is becoming increasingly more diverse and inclusive. In 2020, nearly 40,000 women took the AP exam in Computer Science Principles, which is nearly 3 times higher than those who sat for the exam in 2017. We can see how over the years, computer science education has changed and evolved to include broader ideas critical to computational thinking. And now we see the important role computational thinking plays in nearly all aspects of STEM education, whether it's mathematics, data science, engineering, biology. The integration of computer science into STEM education has helped the field make extraordinary strides in expanding participation and further developing the computer science field. Curiosity-driven, discovery-based exploratory research is the bedrock of NSF, and our mission to support the entire range of fundamental research is what makes NSF a unique federal agency. All of the potential benefits of science, technology, and engineering that we see today are driven by the unbelievable power of discovery and curiosity. NSF funded engineering research centers and science and technology research centers bring together research, education, and technology to create hubs for innovation, just as one example. And these centers are great examples of how collaboration can produce groundbreaking research and bring new ideas and businesses to the market quickly. Since the program's start in 1985, NSF has funded 75 engineering research centers, or ERCs as we call them. So we funded 75 ERCs throughout the United States. NSF supports each center for up to 10 years. These investments have led to so many successes, including the creation of 200 spin-off companies, over 850 patents, and numerous groundbreaking research outcomes and new technologies. At NSF, we also see tremendous opportunities for artificial intelligence in every state. AI is one of the most important industries of the future. It is already part of people's daily lives, and it is only going to become more and more integrated into how we live and work. And NSF is funding and continues to fund the work in AI that's going to push the boundaries even further. Quantum is another industry of the future that will need to be a national in scope. How do we develop a national quantum platform that connects to every region of the country? Resilience is also a framework for how science and engineering disciplines can strengthen the nation. And of course, biotechnology and the bioeconomy are going to transform and have already transformed our health and well-being. At NSF, we are always thinking about how do we speed these industries and areas of research so that the incredible benefits they promise can be realized as fast as possible. We are also always taking into consideration how we can support learning everywhere and design educational methodologies and integrate social and behavioral knowledge at every level so we can enhance and enrich outcomes. And throughout everything we do, we must think about how our work is enhancing society. By expanding our knowledge of human behavior, economics, and social sciences, we can have a better understanding of how to design systems and policies that can have meaningful impact on people's well-being. Over the past 70 years, we have worked to put ourselves on a launch pad that leads to a bigger, bolder future. People, partnerships, and translation will be the propellants that will boost us at speed and scale, like tons and megatons of rocket fuel. I'd like to share another example of how decades of NSF investments in basic research in the STEM community were critical to addressing current needs. And this one focuses on fighting COVID over the last 2 years. NSF investments in PCR go back to the 1960s. And today, as we know, this has been a critical tool for COVID testing. One of the innovative approaches that NSF has supported is tracking COVID-19 infections in wastewater, which allows researchers to identify outbreaks before symptoms begin to appear in a community. We also supported the early development of additive manufacturing methods and 3D printing through numerous investments in the 1980s. And thanks to those investments, 3D printing technology today is at a point where, at the height of the pandemic, high school and college students could help manufacture personal protective equipment and make important contributions to the fight against COVID-19. And many of you likely have heard of CRISPR, a technology used to edit genes. This is another NSF investment that is paying off today by enabling rapid testing for COVID-19. PCR is also an important tool for COVID testing, which demonstrates how diverse investments can converge after years or decades to help us overcome current and multifaceted challenges. Progress enabled by NSF is critical for designing public policy that improves public health outcomes and helps communities navigate big challenges like COVID-19. For example, NSF funds the Societal Experts Action Network, which links decision makers with social, behavioral, and economic science researchers who can provide evidence-based expert guidance that supports local, state, and federal policies in their responses related to COVID-19. And in this example, as in the last one, you can see that the research that we funded many decades ago came to fruition to solve a huge societal challenge decades later. And today, as researchers in their labs and in their fields are working on the discoveries of today leading to the discoveries of tomorrow, in 40 years from now, at the next science festival that will be taking place, I hope that we can look back on the investments that led to discoveries today that are helping to address those societal challenges 40 years from now. Another aspect of NSF I would like to highlight is that we believe cross-cutting and multidisciplinary thinking is essential to strengthening NSF's mission and is absolutely necessary for progress to be made in the fields of science and technology. The Office of International Science and Engineering, for example, is the focal point for international science and engineering activities, both inside and outside of NSF. Our international office manages NSF's internationally facing programs and promotes innovation throughout the US research community by creating access to international knowledge, infrastructure, and capabilities. And our Office of Integrative Activities works across disciplinary boundaries to lead and coordinate strategic programs and opportunities that capitalize on new interdisciplinary scientific and engineering concepts and generate technology-based solutions for economic and societal benefit. These areas of NSF act as change agents that catalyze and capitalize on opportunities and capabilities across the entire agency to strengthen progress and achieve success. And we know that as we design solutions into the future, it truly is at the intersection of disciplines, at the intersection of activities, where we find some of the most exciting and innovative places of scientific discovery. And that is why at NSF, we are so excited to be launching a new cross-cutting directorate. In fact, the first new directorate in 31 years at NSF. It has an entirely new approach that is different from any of the offices and directorates that have come before it. Our new directorate is focused specifically on enabling technology, innovation, and partnerships throughout the country at speed and scale. And we call this new directorate TIP for Technology, Innovation, and Partnership. And it is all about taking exciting new approaches to strengthening and expanding NSF's research and innovation programs. The new directorate is about a strategic mindset that supercharges research outcomes and speeds the cycle of discovery and innovation so that research quickly translates into practical applications. To do this, we have been asking ourselves, how do we accelerate more public-private partnerships? Well, TIP will establish seed funding to incentivize the scaling up of public and private partnerships by providing funding to specifically enable strategic high-impact relationships that will deepen and enhance NSF's mission across all areas of science, engineering, and education. How do we ensure even more pathways to entrepreneurship? And how can we make sure we are leveraging talent and ideas everywhere across this great nation? These are some of our key questions. And to do this, within the new TIP Directorate, we will build and expand capacities for innovation at the level of individual communities. We will be launching regional innovation engines that tackle use-inspired, solutions-oriented research and innovation in a range of technological areas, such as artificial intelligence, quantum information science, and advanced wireless technologies. Of course, NSF is also looking to accelerate lab-to-market solutions in all disciplines of science and engineering. The new TIP Directorate will look to enhance and scale NSF's current lab-to-market approaches as well, while looking to imagine new and powerful programs and partnerships to increase the speed of this translation. And as you can tell, the theme of speed is running throughout a lot of this new work. We are trying to do our work more quickly to get solutions to benefit society. Finally, we also ask questions like, how do we bridge regional innovation engines to larger innovation ecosystems that span the entire country? NSF will support new translation accelerators that are distributed throughout the country. Each translation accelerator will bring together universities, federal agencies, for-profit companies, nonprofit organizations, venture capital investors, and civil society to actively support the development and commercialization of research results in key technology areas. In short, the translation accelerators will rapidly incubate the translation of research results, including from the regional innovation engines, helping to yield new startups, new jobs, and whole new industries. NSF's vision for the future of discovery and innovation is built around the idea of creating robust innovation ecosystems across the country that can drive science and engineering to new heights of success. That is why events such as these are so important to spreading the message as to why science matters and how STEM can improve the lives of all of us. I hope that you are all inspired to be curious and feel empowered by the transformational impact that science has on us as individuals and as a collective society. I'd like to extend my gratitude once more to the organizers of this event and everyone here who has joined me for this presentation. It has been a wonderful experience getting to share the unique role of NSF, and I look forward to answering any questions anyone may have. Thank you so much.
So I can't tell if I'm on the screen, but this is Lori. And I want to thank Dr. Marrongelle. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all the attendees tonight when I say we appreciate you sharing your extraordinary expertise with us. At this point, we'd like to open up this conversation for questions from our audience. If you're joining us on Zoom, please feel free to use the question function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you're joining us on Facebook Live, please feel free to type your questions into the comment section. And to get us started, Dr. Marrongelle, we have many young aspiring scientists in our audience tonight. What advice do you have for them as they pursue their dreams and follow their curiosity?
So it's so exciting to hear that. And some pieces of advice that I've gleaned throughout the years and experienced personally are don't hesitate to reach out and knock on doors and talk to people and hear about the work that they're doing, where there might be experiences for you to plug in, and just learn about the many wonders of science that are out there. I've heard such extraordinary stories of folks who just through sheer willpower walked into a lab or emailed a faculty member, and so many scientists, so many of us want to spread that love of science, want to see folks involved, especially young folks involved in the scientific enterprise, and really keep that spark of curiosity burning. So very big piece of advice: don't ever hesitate to reach out and learn and ask questions. It's one of the wonderful things about the scientific community is that we are a community of learners, and we are a community of those who are very inquisitive. So asking those questions and seeking to learn will help guide you in some really great directions.
I think that's such good advice, and having such a wealth of expertise in the state and around Michigan State, scientists love to talk about their work and they love to introduce people. And we have all sorts of really great programs as well out of Michigan State and Extension and across the place that are really designed to introduce young people to being scientists. And so we really encourage people to take advantage of those. We have another question that is about public-private partnerships. So could you explain a little bit about what a public-private partnership is, and then how that plays into NSF's goals and mission?
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful question. So public-private partnership refers to, we as a government agency are considered the public side of this. So we steward and we take very seriously our stewarding of taxpayer funds through the programs that we run. And we can do more with those very precious dollars when we partner with industries or philanthropic organizations or foundations or nonprofits, organizations who have similar interests. And so they represent the private part of things. When we bring our monies together, we are putting a spotlight on certain programs, issues, problems that we're trying to solve. And we can often multiply the impact of what we would be doing individually. We can also start to create community and create connections where we might have work happening in a constellation of places that are disconnected by bringing together the public side with the private side and focusing in on particular problems. We can really put an emphasis on an issue and make progress more quickly. As an example, a program that I was involved in in my time when I was leading the Education and Human Resources Directorate, we had a partnership with the Boeing Corporation, and they were very interested in reskilling their workforce and how to do that in a way that wasn't going to require their workforce to take lots of time off from work and go back to school, but where they could continue working, but have access to very high quality online education. And we partnered with them. This is also an area that we were interested in. We were interested in continuing to understand the learning and teaching of online STEM content. And so by partnering with Boeing, we were able to create a space and an emphasis in thinking about the learning and teaching of online content in mechatronics and software development, so that they were able to have to get an area that they were interested in addressed, and we were able to continue to push the boundaries of some fundamental research on learning and teaching. That's just one example of many where by bringing our funding together, we can help highlight an issue and really have great impact. We also were able to develop a community who is quite interested in these topics and bring in a variety of researchers and practitioners and experts to really kind of move the science forward in this area.
You know, you're bringing up so many important points that have to do with collaboration across different kinds of partners. And so out of our office, which is outreach and engagement at MSU, it really has a convening function about bringing community, scientists, funders together to really bring all those brains together to try to think about how to solve these issues. And none of that can be done alone. I think there's this perception sometimes that scientists work alone, and it's really such a collaborative effort. We need all the different kinds of knowledge that everyone can bring.
Absolutely. Even for mathematicians, we do not do our work alone.
That's right. So we have a great question here, which is, Dr. Marrongelle, what inspires you day to day in your work at NSF? What keeps you motivated to face those big societal challenges?
Oh, well, NSF is really a very, very special place. I feel so honored and fortunate to be able to work at the National Science Foundation. It is very exciting. We all take seriously the mission of our agency to support basic fundamental scientific research. And we know that without continuing those advances, we will not be able to continue to advance as a society. So we believe that the future of our country is in the hands of continuing to make investments in science, and to have both successes and failures, to understand where we have ideas that are not going to pan out, and where we have ideas that maybe decades later, like some of the examples I shared this evening, will have huge impact on society. It's exciting to know that like every day that we fund people's good ideas, we're on the ground floor of something big. We don't know what that is oftentimes, but we know that somewhere in all those projects that we fund, there are going to be huge impacts. I think for many of us at NSF, it is very exciting to be able to enable others to do incredible work that will have great impact on society. We are all innovators and problem solvers at heart, and it is a joy to be able to see this work take shape across the country. So it's very exciting. It has been such an exciting, just such an exciting organization to be part of, and just having that excitement of, you know, knowing that we're seeding like just amazing work that will impact us all in ways that we can't even imagine today.
You know, as we were talking, I've had before the webinar started, I've had a little experience with NSF myself, and I have to say that it can be very easy for people to think cynically about scientists and scientific agencies. And my experience with NSF is that the people who work there are all so excited about all the potential discoveries and innovative science that comes in every day. So I really second what you're saying, and you're a very lucky person to get to work there. And I think, you know, we're all lucky to have NSF. I really believe that. We have another great question here, which is, you've talked about the role of science and technology to face the challenges of today and the future. What about the social sciences and humanities aspects of the solution? Because not everything's technical. So how does arts and science and humanities build into NSF's mission?
Oh, I love this question. It gets at it gets at the heart of all of my interests. Before coming to NSF, I was the dean of a college of liberal arts and sciences. So integrating the humanities and social sciences with the natural sciences and technology has always been something that has been near and dear to me. We cannot continue to make advances, especially in technologies, without considering the profound impacts on society, without considering the profound impacts on individuals. I think, you know, just in the past several years, we have really learned to understand the limitations of AI, the human limitations of AI, the biases that are built into AI. Just as one example, I mean, this is one tiny example, so much that happens in engineering design and thinking through the impact of new ideas and new products has to include the human element. It has to include a full understanding of the psychology, the sociology that impacts us on a day-to-day basis. Then also looking historically and in an ethnographic and anthropologic lens to see how past innovations have had both positive and negative impacts, and how we can shape what we're doing to not repeat those mistakes for the future. So I see, you know, the one, like, some of the best work happens not only at those spaces where scientific disciplines meet, but where we can fully integrate sociology, psychology, the humanities, thinking through history, into the advances as we're, as they're coming on board, as we're starting to make them. And I think we've seen, like I said, some incredible examples of this in the more recent past. And this is something that we need to take seriously. And when I think about, some of the technology organizations who they employ anthropologists exactly to study some of these issues and really think through how the advent of new technologies will change society, will change people, will change communities, will deal with questions about ethics. There's, in so much of our data society today, ethics looms large, and there are huge issues around data collection, data use, data distribution, who has access to data, what kinds of data are being collected. These are all highly ethical questions that we need to take seriously. So we have several programs at NSF, not only in the Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences Directorate, but programs in AI and ethics that really span across the foundation and really think through these issues and take them very seriously. So I can say with pride that when we talk about scientific disciplines at NSF, it absolutely includes the social sciences. And as we think about the other approaches, historical and otherwise, that are also important, we understand that those. We understand the importance of those. We actually take history very seriously at NSF. We do think a lot about the history of our organization, what was happening in our environment in our country at the time that NSF was founded, which I referred to this evening. But we think about that in terms of the present day as well. Why is it important for the United States to remain a global leader in science and technology? What is it about the values that we espouse as a nation that are intertwined with science that one might not think about at first blush? So lots and lots of connections to the social sciences and humanities, and very, very important connections.
Thank you. And I want to note also that within the arts, we have a student group on campus who is self-organized, 100 strong, who are very devoted to the intersection of science and the arts. And that's been very exciting to watch. I'm going to take one last question, and then we'll need to wind up. But I'm going to boil this down, but I think it's one that you're probably very familiar with, which is that there has never been a time that's as important for people to really understand and appreciate science and be able to participate as citizens in a democracy. The NSF plays a very important role in broadening science understanding, and you've identified a number of initiatives, but as a society, we still struggle with misunderstanding and mistrust among some citizens regarding scientific expertise, and we see that reflected in response to COVID, science, or global warming. So as a leader at the NSF, what can be done to encourage and counter mistrust, encourage appreciation and counter mistrust in science?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And we talk a lot about this. The public trust in science or public mistrust in science is an issue that we take very seriously. And we do see that as a fundamental role of what we do as a public agency that funds the scientific enterprise. This is why, this is one of the reasons why one of our 2 merit review criteria is around broader impacts, because we do take this so seriously. In every project that gets funded by NSF, we ask our principal investigators to scope out the broader impacts on society that their scientific activity will have, and oftentimes those include outreach to the public. We fund a lot of science museums. We fund a lot of outreach activities, again, through the former directorate that I led, Education and Human Resources. We take those scientific, burning questions, some of the fundamental results, and really attempt to turn them into information and facts that the general public can consume. Our investments in education, which have gone back to the beginning of NSF 70 years ago, have also sought to think carefully about how we educate in the scientific disciplines in our schools and in formal settings, but also in those informal settings, which not only include museums, but also include, more informal groups in a range of areas across the country, things like 4-H clubs or after school activities, or library exhibits or library groups. So we have to keep at it. I don't think there's an easy solution to this. Like many of our most challenging problems, we have to have all hands on deck, so to speak, to continue to try to make inroads and figure out what are going to be the hooks. And maybe it's not some information on climate change, but maybe it's getting someone who's interested in astronomy to get hooked into deepening their understanding of how the universe works and what are we looking at when we look at a night sky, and really opening that door to where a spark or a hook for them for science will come in. There's a range of scientific disciplines. There's a range of ways to get people interested, and then have them come around to and learn more about what the scientific enterprise is all about. We often say in many facets of our lives that building trust is one of the most important things we do with each other in our communities, environment, society, and it's hard work. And I think similarly for science, it's hard work, but we can all find those little hooks with different people. So I would encourage everyone here to take what you're learning through the next month and figure out ways to create hooks for some of those that may be skeptical.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think the research shows that people generally are having more mistrust in institutions, but they actually have quite a bit of trust in individual scientists and research. And especially when you put something like climate change in the context of their own community and talk about how that is affecting them, then it has so much more meaning, right? So that's the importance of engagement. Well, we're going to finish up, but I want to thank Dr. Marrongelle so much for this great conversation. And before we depart for the night, I want to remind you about a few feature events happening during this year's Science Festival. We have statewide astronomy night, which takes place on April 8th at sites throughout the state, including the MSU Abrams Planetarium and the MSU Observatory. And it invites people to take a tour of Michigan's night sky, with some locations offering the use of telescopes to observe planets and space objects that are visible in April, weather permitting. It is Michigan. Science in the Gardens happens April 9th and 10th, where attendees can visit MSU's horticulture gardens, which are fantastic, and to participate in events from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There you can explore butterflies in the garden, but you'll also be able to learn about machine learning techniques, participate in chemistry demonstrations, and examine how well movies obey the laws of physics, to name a few. So more information about these and other feature events, as well as a complete list of all free events, can be found at sciencefestival.msu.edu. And I want to thank Dr. Marrongelle again for helping us kick off the MSU Science Festival. It's such an honor to have a leader from NSF come and help us get going. And another heartfelt thank you to all of our sponsors. And finally, thank you to all of you for being here tonight. And we look forward to another successful month of celebrating science.